Those of us who are always looking for something good to eat in Maine have a new guide. It's a new book called Unique Eats and Eateries of Maine. The author is Mike Urban. He has written for many years about food for Yankee Magazine, and he's with us here in the 207 studio. Thanks for coming in. Good to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Rob. Appreciate it.
I am impressed with this book. You have 84 different restaurants that you have pinpointed.
Correct.
How many miles did you put on the car just to visit all these places in Maine?
Well, I've been working on, I've done 6 books on New England cuisine and over the last 12 years, and so many thousands of miles beforehand doing the background research. But last summer I spent a concentrated amount of time living for 4 months in Damerscott Mills. Probably 6,000 or 7,000 miles just last summer alone.
What was your approach to the book? How did you want to put this together and have it stand out from all the other books that might be out there and other guides?
Good question. I just want to make sure there was a good geographical diversity. These are mostly mom and pop places, by the way. You know, just this is what I think most truly reflects the character of the state. The places are not created by restaurant groups or marketing firms or anything. Places where an individual or a couple or a family makes, starts a restaurant, keeps it going. So I just looked for places that have good to great food, have been around for at least a decade because it's a book and has to have some shelf life, and a variety of cuisines and geographic representation. There's a lot of stuff here on the coast, but there's also a lot of interesting stuff inland as well.
You've got it covered from Kittery to Fort Kent. Let's talk about some of the restaurants that you write about. We chose 4 from various parts of the state that represent 4 different cuisines. We'll begin with Dolly's in Frenchville. What appealed to you about this restaurant?
Well, it's way up there in Aroostook County, way up on the Canadian border. You can look across the St. John River, and there it is. There's Canada over on the other side. But I had read that it has this wonderful Acadian French cuisine, which is sort of a dying thing, even in northern Maine. So I wanted to go up there and check this place out. It's kind of a 60s era looking coffee shop, with indoor, outdoor carpeting, and this wonderful, foods that I hadn't seen anyplace else. These things called ploys, which are like, these buckwheat pancakes cooked, griddled on one side. The other side it has a sort of pumice-like still bubbles and stuff like that. Great to put molasses or syrup or butter on, and also to dip into their Acadian French stew to sop up the gravy.
Let's move on to Western Maine, a really interesting place because it combines Laotian and Southern cooking. It's called Lemus Eats, if I'm pronouncing that right?
Correct.
And it's in Bethel.
Yep, very interesting place. Chef Sav, who owns it, I won't try to pronounce his name. It's a multisyllabic Laotian name. He is Laotian by lineage and Virginian by birth. So he grew up in the South, but he has Laotian parents. So he went to the Virginia Culinary Institute and got a degree from there. And so his cooking is a very interesting blend of East meets West, sort of barbecue versus Southeast Asian cuisine. So he does all these interesting things out there in the beautiful, verdant, air, fields, mountains and forests of Bethel. And this is the type of place you would expect to see on the streets of Portland, but here it is out there, in the Western Mountains region. Which
is kind of the same story with another restaurant that you profiled, a cuisine that you would not expect to find in Millbridge, way down east at Vasquez Mexican Takeout, where you get really legit, authentic Mexican food.
This is true. And the genesis of this place is it started in the school bus. There are migrant Mexican workers who for decades have been picking blueberries in late summer, early fall, out in the down east region. And one family, the Vasquez family, started a little restaurant, kitchen type thing. They would drive around and feed the workers. And it eventually planted roots there in Millbridge. They have this big 2-story, bright green building, seasonal still, but they want to make it year round. But they cook real, authentic, heaping portions of Mexican food.
And let's end with a classic Lobster Shack kind of place, Pemaquid Seafood in Pemaquid.
Pemaquid, the first time I went there was a dozen years ago, and it was a cooperative, a lobster cooperative, as they are up and down in the Big Coast, Maine there. But it was just the shack was sort of an afterthought, just a cinder block building where they boiled lobsters, did a little bit of deep frying. Now they have a beautiful shack, a wooden shack sitting there with this beautiful wooden deck overlooking the mouth of the Pemaquid River and the harbor, doing wonderful, wonderful lobster and deep fried seafood at the same time.
You pretty much got it all covered, Mike, and that's not easy to do. Again, the name of the book, Unique Eats and Eateries of Maine. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. If you'd like more information on the book and on its author, Mike Urban, just head to the 207 section of our website or app.